Before this week's market analyst joins us, we'll get a check of the numbers for the week ending November 11th. And somebody needs to tell Mother Nature that we're still over a month away from winter because snow still on the ground in some parts. Nevertheless, though, harvest is chugging along, and these numbers come to us from the USDA. Beginning with corn, and harvest reached 84% complete. That's up from 76% last week and above 81% a year ago. Moving on to soybeans, and harvest ticked up to 88% complete. It was 83% a week ago. The current harvest number is behind last year and the 5-year average of 93%. And as for winter wheat, 89% is planted and 77% is emerged. The weather has caused a lag in that crop too. The 2017 pace and the 5-year average are both at 94%. The crop is rated at 54% good to excellent. Our first guest is market analyst Elaine Kub. She's also written the book Mastering the Grain Markets, How Profits Are Really Made. Lots of news in the ag world, and she's going to help us make sense of it all. Elaine, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And to begin, any numbers that jumped out at you with the latest crop progress report?
Yeah, so this crop progress report, we only see the numbers as of Sunday night, but pretty much all of the row crop harvest is about 90% complete probably as we're speaking now, which is a few percentage points behind the average pace, but not to be unexpected, especially given that snow that we saw last week in Nebraska and Kansas. And I think the bigger concern might be that cotton harvesting, that's behind pace, and more concerningly, because that snow in Texas would be a real problem for cotton harvest. But as far as the market implications for any of that, even the cotton is not really seeing a price boost because of any late harvest.
And yeah, you mentioned the weather, and I've read that for a lot of folks, the second half of harvest going a lot slower than the first. And the weather, big reason for that. And you were telling me yesterday even that it's been a challenge for you. So from what you've seen, has that been the case for the majority of people?
Yes, it has been a long and I think frustrating harvest. It seems like everywhere the delays weren't just, little weather delays. They were sort of big, long 10-day delays, or the moisture was really, concerning about the soybeans. Even in Iowa, there were soybeans popping out of pods or sprouting in the fields. So there was a time this harvest when you did get a boost in the soybean prices because of those concerns about quality issues or moisture issues. But I think now that's sort of been resolved. We're past the gut slot of harvest, and now we just trade towards the end of the year.
And one of your recent articles talks about how producers are already looking ahead to the 2019 growing season and deciding on their mix of soybeans versus corn. What's your advice on that situation?
Yeah, Troy, this is the time of year when you sort of look at your yields and think what would be best for next year and start buying seed. We look at the price scenario. Obviously, soybeans are not very favorable. We expect to see soybeans valued 2.5 times the price of corn, and that's just sort of the 10-year average that you see in the futures and in the cash prices. But so that would imply, let's say you've got $4 corn for 2019 futures, which is exactly what it was this morning, then you should have $10 soybean futures for 2019, and that is not what we're seeing. That soybean futures market is 60 or 70 cents away where it should be compared to that average. So that means as farmers are projecting out their acres for next year or buying seed or putting down fertilizer, soybeans do not look very favorable, and obviously this is a result of this trade war that has really impacted our U.S. soybean prices and our soybean basis.
What are some of the big international stories that you're following right now? I know you just mentioned trade. Anything else that's going on?
Yeah, so through the end of November, I don't think we're going to see the soybean market maybe make any new fresh lows or any big momentum either direction, because that soybean market is waiting to see how the U.S. and Chinese presidents get on at the G20 summit, which will be November 30th. So I think we're in a standstill until then. But meanwhile, we are seeing global edible oil prices continue to fall. Malaysian palm oil prices are on a downward trend. Crude oil prices are on a downward trend, which suggests that commodity traders are just worried about global raw material demand everywhere. So that could start to knock on corn, ethanol prices, obviously. Just these outside markets that the grains are staying stable, but there's a lot of volatility in the outside markets that could eventually knock us.
And what are some of the big questions you've been getting from farmers over the past few weeks?
Well, what do you do about soybeans? What do you do about soybean basis? And I don't think that there's much we can do. Let's say we do get some great news from the G20 summit or some good rumor that really juices up soybean futures. That could happen quickly, but to actually repair the physical soybean market and start getting shuttle trains, start shipping back to the PNW, that will take time. I think the soybean basis thing is just a waiting game, and hopefully folks had storage plans that they could store as much as their own soybeans as they could.
And last time you were on the show, we talked about grain storage. And with harvest getting closer and closer to being finished, how do things look on that front?
Well, I think that there has been a great trend in the industry over the past, let's say, 5-10 years of people building on-farm storage and putting themselves in a good position to capture the carry or to wait for better basis prices in the spring. So that's been heartening. I think folks came into this harvest knowing that this would be a problem, and they mostly had a plan. I haven't heard anybody getting too much stuck yet.
Elaine Kub, I appreciate you talking to me today. We'll do it again soon.
It's a pleasure.